it's Kari at StudioR12 Stencils, and today I am working on some Halloween projects, and I wanted to show you how easy it is to glitter through your stencils and really add some pop to your projects. You can do this any time of year, but during Halloween, we really love to add some glitter. So we have gone ahead and base coated our MDF surface. We used our number 28. This is just a black paint, but you can get the StudioR12 Paint Color guide on our website. I will link that below. It gives you, we give you these numbers, and then you can check our color guide and reference those and go out and get your paints and try to get the similar colors that we're using. So I'm gonna link that below, and I'm also going to link for you a video that we walk through step by step how to use that color guide while you're painting. So I have 2 coats of black paint on my surface, and for today's project, we are going to use a fun little Happy Halloween stencil. And we are going to combine it with one of our frame stencils. We have a ton of frame stencils, and this project was actually one of several that I decided I wanted to do when I started looking at frames. So what you might notice with this is that the surface is a lot bigger than the stencil. Don't let that deter you from painting. A lot of times we like to have the surface and the stencil the same size, but it can really be fun when you mix and match, and white space is so popular right now. If you get on Pinterest, a lot of the things that you see have a white background with just a few little black words, and white space is huge. So think about that when you're picking your next surface. But one thing you will want to keep in mind when you are using a stencil that is smaller than the surface is getting it centered and getting it lined up. That's where our handy dandy T-square comes in. This is the easiest way to explain it is a painter's ruler. It has a T on the top so you can line it up with the edge of your surface, and then it has a ruler there for you. So you can go through here and see that this is 1.5 inches on this side, and that's pretty good eyeballing on my part. It's about 1.5 inches on that side. We'll come to this edge and then go to the top, and it's a little lower on the bottom than the top, so we'll pull it up a little bit more. And then once we have where we want it, we will go ahead and tape it down. When you are taping down your stencils, you always want to tape on 2 sides. If you tape on one side, you will get some wiggle. If you tape on 4 sides, then you're gonna have a hard time pulling up the tape so that you can peek under. We always recommend peeking. So we are going to work on some glitter. I am going to glitter this frame on the surface, and we're going to use a black glitter on it. So then we're gonna have a tone on tone project. A lot of the Halloween decor, you think of the bats and the skeletons, and it's all just really grungy, dirty, black and white. So that's what we're sticking with, the black on black today. We have a couple of different options of how you can apply glitter through your stencils. You'll lay down your stencil, and you can either use paint, so you can use paint through your stencil just like you would originally stencil your project, or we have a couple of other options. We have our Alien Stick and Restick or foiling glue. So if you have those, then you can try out some different things. I'm gonna use the stick and restick as we get started, and then later on I'm gonna show you what it's like to use paint. So first we're going to use our stick and restick, which is a product you can get on StudioR12.com. I'm going to put some over here on my palette. We're just using a piece of scrap mylar, which you can also get on StudioR12.com. We used to offer palette paper. We had a hard time getting it in, so we just decided to use extra pieces that we had around here, and it has worked like a charm. You can wash it, it's reusable. I'm using a foam dauber. This is one of the easiest things to apply a repositional adhesive or a foiling glue, something that has really thin lines like this stencil. You can get under it really easy if you're using a brush, so we really like to use these daubers. We have a round one, and then we have the skinny one. I really like the skinny one for this project since we're going right along the lines. So we'll get right in here to our adhesive. And what this adhesive is going to do is it is just going to give us a sticky place to attach the glitter. I'm just going to go through over my stencil. And when you first put the adhesive on, it will show up white. And it's really good on a black background, a dark background, so you can see it to make sure that you have gotten it all over the area that you are wanting to glitter. And with the dauber, since the dauber is a little bit bigger than the space that the stencil is cut out, you can also see a little bit of the sticky on the stencil to see where you have already applied. And as I add the adhesive to my dauber, I'm putting on the dauber and then I'm coming over here to the side and kind of offloading. That is a rule of thumb when you are using stencils, is to always offload. We have so many people contact us on a daily basis. We just got a message on our YouTube channel that they had just found our channel and they had run across our basics video, and they said they were so thankful that they did because they were almost in tears because they keep getting bleeding under and they couldn't figure out why. So offloading the paint or offloading your adhesive is really going to help prevent that bleeding under. You might feel that you're wasting paint, but once you get to the end, if you do it without the offloading and you do it with the offloading, you'll notice such a big difference. Okay, so we have our adhesive on our surface. I'm going to go ahead and put my dauber in the water, and I'm going to stick a brush in the bottom of it so that it will go down in the bucket. Those like to float, so if you stick a brush in the bottom, it will help sink it so that it will stay wet. If it floats to the top and flips over and that adhesive dries, you might have to chuck it and get a different dauber. A lot of times we like to label a dauber that we use it for sticky, and then we know to grab that one anytime we are going to use an adhesive with it. All right, so we're gonna peel off this stencil, and you can very lightly, I can see it, you might not be able to see it on the camera, but I can see where the adhesive is. Okay, so now we are going to grab our glitter. So I really wanted to use black glitter for this project. Unfortunately, it looks like we've been using a lot of black glitter lately. So I'm going to use a black on a portion of it until I run out. Then I'm also going to use a mix. This one's called charcoal. It's a mix of black and silver. And then I can show you two different looks with using the glitter on your project. So first we're gonna start with the black, and we took off our stencil, but where we still have that sticky, we are just going to pour the glitter right over top of the sticky and go along the line. Okay, and we have this handy dandy tool. We do not offer it on StudioR12, but we do have an Amazon affiliate link for that. You can find the links of all of the things that we're using today from our website and our Amazon affiliate links in the description below. This little tray is going to be a lifesaver for when you glitter. You have your glitter on your project, and then you are going to put it over the tray and dust it off. And then voila, you have your glitter over top of your stick and restick. We will pour this glitter back into the little container. I'm gonna finish the portion in the black, and then I'm going to do the portion with the silver and black, and then we'll be back. Okay, we are done with the glitter. I am going to have glitter all over me probably for the next month. Luckily, we use black. It's gonna fit my wardrobe for the Halloween season. So I'm kind of glad that we ran out of the black glitter. so that I could show you a couple different ways, but then I'm also kind of sad because I really love how the black glitter turned out. Okay, so check this out. On this side, we use the all black glitter. On this side, we use the glitter that has the black and silver. So the black and silver glitter kind of turned out purple, which is very Halloween theme. But I love how this black on black turned out. It kind of reminds me of a fuzzy spider, that it brings that texture into it. But look how amazing and how precise and intentional the glitter is because we used the stencil. I love how using a stencil can just bring your projects to life. And we've used these frame stencils on a ton of projects. They're super cool when you do them with foil. I will share the link to that playlist for you. So now we are going to get into part 2 of our project, which is the stenciling of our main design. And I just chose a super simple Happy Halloween stencil. I'm not going to use my T-square here. I have the frame. So I'm just going to line it up with the frame. We're also going to want to tape down here, but now we have to be a little more careful because we do have glitter on our project. So we're going to come to an area that doesn't have glitter, tape down the stencil in 2 corners, and I'm going to leave off the little swirls because where I put the frame, I don't want it to be too much. I'm going to grab our white paint. This is number 27 on the color guide, and just pour out a really small amount on my paper towel. We don't have a lot to paint, and I don't want to use a lot of paint to get there. So here's a quick lesson in stencil basics. Use a dome brush. We love the dome shape. The dome shape kind of helps prevent the bleeding under. If you have a flat brush, when you pounce down, those bristles are going to kind of splay, which can push the paint under your stencil. With a dome brush, only the top portion of your brush hits the project, depending on how much pressure you put in the brush. So then that's less bristles on your project, which decreases your chances of bleeding under. I'm going to scoop some paint onto our brush and then come over to our paper towel. Remember I was talking about offloading? We are going to offload our paint on our paper towel, do 10 or 15 swirls here. Before you go to your project, you want your paint on your brush to be very dusty so that you can hardly even see it. If your paint is wet and putting a wet pile of paint in your hand, you have entirely too much paint, you are going to get bleeding under, and then you're going to be very sad, especially if you have already glittered this background. So we're going to come to our project, and we are going to very lightly swirl. Now we are going to have to be mindful of our little jack-o'-lantern here and potentially of these swirls as we're painting. So we have our handy dandy multi-masker, which is a product that we made out of Mylar. It's got all kinds of funky shapes, but it allows you to cover up a project that you don't want to get paint on or ghost into. I'm going to grab some more paint because I talked my brush dry while I was searching for my multi-masker. I'm just going to stick this down here and then paint right over it. So I can tell that with my PPY, I did not offload my brush enough. You can see there's kind of a ledge. You might not be able to see it on camera. I can see it here. There's a little bit of a ledge up against the edges of my stencil. There are swirl marks where I just stenciled. So both of those are ways to tell if you have too much too much paint on your brush. You don't need a lot of paint. A little goes a long way. I only put paint on my brush twice and got the whole Happy Halloween stenciled. I am going to do it one more time. Depending on how bold and bright you want your project will depend on how many layers you will need. If you are swirling, once you get to the bottom, you can likely go back up and restart, so there's not a lot of drying time. If you do a pouncing motion, we call this stippling, then you are going to have a little bit more paint. It does give you more coverage quicker, but it also gives you an increased chance of bleeding under because you have more paint on the brush, you're applying a lot more pressure, and when you do the stippling, it pushes the paint up into the brush and then gives you increased chances of bleeding under because there is more paint in your brush. Okay, so we have 2 layers of paint on our Happy Halloween. I did the first layer with a swirl. I did the second layer with a stipple. We have had people ask us in the past, if you stipple, does it give you a texture? And the answer is yes. You will kind of notice if you go down really low and look at it that you might see a texture through your lettering. You can always go back when you are done with your stippled layer and do a quick swirl, and that will chip back on some of that texture if you do not want that look. So I'm gonna peel this off and show you what it looks like, and then I'm gonna tell you why I didn't paint my pumpkin. So here's what our Happy Halloween looks like. Take a look at that. It's nice and bold. We probably could have done another layer of white to make it really, really bold. So we have a black background, and we are going to do a yellow pumpkin, or no, an orange pumpkin. I also have orange glitter. We want this pumpkin to be really bright and bold. So I'm gonna show you what I would do if I was just painting it, and then I'm gonna show you what I would do if I was going to glitter it. If you are painting a lighter color over top of a darker background, if I would just paint this orange right over this black, you would not be able to see it. It would not pop. It would kind of blend in. So that's why we always recommend using a white or a light gray to base your stenciled portion that you want to paint a lighter color over top of a darker background. So a lot of times we'll use a white. However, this time I'm going to use, this is a 30 or 36. This is a gray color. I sometimes like to use grays underneath oranges, yellows, and reds. Especially under red, a white base coat is going to make that pink. So you'll definitely want to use the gray for the reds. I kind of like to keep it uniform, use the gray for all 3. I am going to use the brush that I have the white in, and I'm just gonna get a little bit of paint. I probably poured out a lot, too much paint, because all we're doing is this one light area, and it's not too far off of being white. Looks very similar when you have it beside the Happy Halloween, but it does have a little muted look compared to the white. So now we have this. We are going to get that dry and then paint our orange over top of it. We have our orange ready to paint our pumpkin. This is our 56. It is a very bright and obnoxious orange. A lot of times I tend to choose the more muted neutral colors, but today we're going to go really bright so that that glitter really shows up. I am using a smaller brush on this pumpkin because the area is a lot smaller. And we will use our multi-masker here to preserve our W. I don't know if you noticed, but when I pulled back the stencil to show you what the Happy Halloween looked like, we did have a couple of ghost areas, which means the white paint that I was painting my letters with got into my pumpkin. It wasn't a big deal because we were going to paint it anyway, but if you have a project that is very intricate, there's a lot of details, then you are not going to want to get your greens and pinks and yellows mixed if you're doing a project with flowers. Now there is some hairs off this brush. We have not used this brush in a while. If you get hairs on your project, then what you'll want to do is wait until it is completely dry, and then you can just kind of scratch them off. You can blow dry them off. You can use a sanding block and sand them off. So I'm going to do a couple more layers here, get this nice and bright. Okay, so for our pumpkin, instead of using our adhesive, I am just going to use wet paint. So a couple of tips on that. Your project has to have really wet paint for you to do that. But you have to be careful that you're not putting so much paint on your project that you're going to bleed through. So you'll want to have your glitter to the side, ready to go. Get your paint on your project, And then I'm just going to go ahead and put on my glitter right now with my stencil still on here. Because if I pull off my stencil, there's a chance of pulling the paint because the paint is still wet. So our pumpkin is nice and covered. Going to go ahead and grab our little handy dandy tray. I'm going to put my orange in the bucket. Then I'm going to come over here and try to do this for you to see. Go ahead and knock it off. So our extra glitter is off. Now we can pull off our stencil and have our big reveal. Ta-da! One of the beautiful things about using stencils is that they are reusable, they are washable, and we have a video for you showing you how to wash your stencils, including how to get the glitter off. You'll definitely want to check that out. So let's look at the big reveal, our finished project, and voila. Isn't she beautiful? We have our glittered frame, we have our glittered pumpkin, and it really just adds a pop to a really quick and simple project, and the glittering through the stencils just makes it so easy.